Welcome back, you beautiful people, and welcome to an incredibly fun tutorial today. I'm going to give you 4 tips on how to Shralp, cuttie, basically letting that rear wheel break loose without even touching the brake. Number 1 tip is find a really nice place where it's kind of flat. You don't need much space, but as long as you've got a nice little runway and the terrain is nice and loose. Now, these pine cones are going to offer a lot less grip. You can do this in a car park, but I recommend when it comes to trying to get that wheel to break loose on some tarmac or hard surface, it's going to be quite hard. You're going to have to manipulate it a lot more. So, find yourself a nice bit of terrain just like this, or gravel, to let that back wheel break loose quicker. Tip number 2 is all about trying to weight that front wheel. You want to get your weight over the front, not too much, but just enough to get that back wheel. And whilst you're doing that, you're doing a little turn. It all depends on which way you want to let the back wheel slide. For me, I feel like out to the right is the most natural way for me. So next tip is weight the front, and depends on which way you want to do it. Do a little turn when you want to weight it, like that. So I'm going that way, I'm going to weight it there. Weight there. Throw your weight forward. Just do that. Right, little overview for tip number 2. And what I mean by throwing your weight forward, chucking it, I don't mean like throw your whole body weight over the front and grab your front brake. You don't want to be doing that. What you want to do is just weight the front, because you want the grip on the front, so you've got grip when it comes to the rear breaking loose, because that's where you're going to do the counter steer to bring it back, which we'll come to in a minute. What you want to do is just lighten the rear a little bit and get a little bit of weight on the front. Remember, don't use your front brake. You don't use any brakes in this. Tip number 3 is all about the hips. This is where you want to push your body weight over to whatever side you feel comfortable with. For me, I'm going to send my hips to the right. So when I'm pushing my weight forward onto the front with tip number 2, tip number 3, you're going to curl your feet on your pedals just to lift it a little bit, to manipulate that rear, get it even lighter, and then throw your hips to the side. And whilst you're doing that, you're bringing the back end around as well with it. Right, there's a fine line in tip number 3 where you shouldn't be really lifting the back wheel and jamming it down. What you want to do is there's a little point where you feel the bike slide. That's what you want. You want the bike to slide and not be picked up and chucked down like this, because it's actually not really good for your tire to jam it like that. You want the bike to slide. So kind of practicing the slide instead of the pickup. If you feel like you're picking it up and throwing it down, you're doing it a little bit, well, you're doing it wrong. You want the bike to slide. Tip number 4 is now to bring it back into line. So you want that rear wheel to follow that front again down the trail. Now, at this point, where your bike is out a couple of degrees, your body weight's over the front, not too much, but there's a bit of weight on the front, so you got grip. So now you want to counter turn into it, so turn away from where it's coming. And there'll be a point where the back wheel will slide and stop. It'll give you that little point where it grabs some grip and then fires you back into line. At that point, your hips will naturally go boing and spring back into line with the bike. And at that point, you just kind of let the bike kind of whip back into shape, and you're going straight again down the trail. It's a really cool feeling when you nail it really well on a trail. Now, you can just do this all on the flat, but when you have a point where there's a little bit of a bank, you can use the bank to have that point where it'll have that stop and then whip you back in. It's really fun. Now, this trick is perfect for just those little transitions where you're going from one trail to the other. Not necessarily done on the trail, but these little trails where it's a little bit boring and there's a little bit of a descent, where you can just get the back end to rat-ta-ta-ta-ta and slide a bit. Also, you probably find that you see loads of these points on the trail where you're like, why is there a berm here? A bit like these ones right here. Now that there is a perfect place to get that back end to slide and just Shralp it. It adds a bit more pizzazz to that little pedal towards the next trail. Right, I'm gonna this bit right here. Right, the cool thing about doing it on a bank like this, it doesn't have to be a massive bank, just a little bit. It makes it a lot easier to let that back wheel break loose with grip. And by doing that is you're pushing your weight forward, like I've been saying, but your body weight's going down the bank. So the back end is gonna get super light and you'll feel it just go like a big rainbow effect on here, and you'll feel it catch grip round about here, and that's where you counter-turn into it. You counteract that turn, and you turn the opposite way to get you back down there. Because if you don't, you're gonna end up going down there if you're doing it here. And you don't wanna go down there. Oh no, sorry, Bob. No. Counteract that turn, get your body weight to come straight back, let it whip around into a straight line. It's a super cool feeling, I like it. But doing it on the flat is great to get that whole technique nailed and then take it to this, which is cool. I actually like doing it. And that's why you see a number of these banks in a trail or on a traverse or on a path where you're like, what's going on here? It just spices it up incredibly well. What not to do when it comes to the Shralp or the cuttie or the ratatatata, and that is using the brake to manipulate that rear to break loose. It's all about unweighting the rear to let it get no grip and then to slide. Talk about sliding, you don't want to be lifting the rear wheel and then banging it down. You want it to drift, not a no. Another one is when you're learning it, speed is not your friend. You want to have a nice pace into it, because if you go too fast, it has a tendency to just continue to slide, grip, and then give you a high side, and you don't want that. Now, hopefully you've enjoyed this very quick tutorial on how to cuttie, Shralp, and just ratatata, get that back end to just break loose and add a bit more spice to that little ride of yours. If you've enjoyed this video, let us know in the comments down below, and if I've missed out some tips, or you got some more tips to help out our little community, let us know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time. See ya! Cup of tea, Nick? Yeah, mate. Let's Shralp it down there. See ya.